America, well, the United States administration is involved heavily with Israel in its support for Israel and arming Israel and enabling Israel to continue with this genocide and escalate, and they submit to pressure. But traditionally, the United States administration had a reservation, at least in terms of figures in the administration, as in officials in the administration, in having communication with Israelis who caused harm to the United States of America openly, for example, like espionage. However, that did not stop Mike Huckabee, the ex-pastor, now American ambassador to Israel, from meeting with none other than Jonathan Pollard. Jonathan Pollard, the spy that the Americans did not want to release, and he was eventually released, and had an operation against the United States of America. Several reports said that he sent very sensitive information to the Soviet Union at the time against the United States when he was in America. And Mike Huckabee, the State Department did not outright deny, but they said that these reports, they had a lot of contradictions, or certain things weren't very clear. But Jonathan Pollard himself confirmed. So they didn't deny, but Jonathan Pollard confirmed. And he said that it was very friendly, a very friendly meeting. The State Department said that he met with many people, and acting like we don't know. You know very well who Jonathan Pollard is, the biggest Israeli spy, was just released, and now he's also sharing his thoughts. And that meeting came simultaneously with Jonathan Pollard criticizing Donald Trump. So imagine you have an ambassador of the United States in Israel going to meet a spy who worked for Israel against the United States, harmed what the Americans consider their national security to a very, very large extent at the time. Well, it was the peak of the Cold War, let's not forget. And he's meeting this spy when he is criticizing the serving president of the United States. He was criticizing President Trump by saying that Trump was basically very wrong in selling the F-35s to Saudi Arabia. He's not happy with that. Many Israelis were not happy. Now, although we understand that this deal that Donald Trump had with Saudi Arabia included F-35s, there were multiple reports that said that they would be less technologically advanced than the ones that Israel has. Israel has approximately 40 of them out of 75 that it purchased, and Saudi Arabia wants some of them. Many in Israel are talking about a shift in the strategic vibe in the region if the Saudis get those fighter jets. But Trump did it, and this man was criticizing Trump, yet the American ambassador in Israel went and visited him anyway. Now, Donald Trump approved the release of the Epstein files. How comes? He published a post on his Truth Social platform confirming the release of the Epstein files, and now we're supposed to see more files being released apart from what has already been released. Now, in his confirmation, Trump was trying to blame everything on the Democrats, as if, yeah, I'm going to release the files because most of the people that are going to be in the files are Democrats. He's not worried about anything, and there we go. Although, really and truly, the Trump administration was against publishing the files. Trump himself was against publishing the files. He was being very defensive about publishing them several times when he was asked about the Epstein files, because he was in a relationship with Epstein. He's saying that, oh, it was Bill Clinton, he traveled with him 26 times, but you're pictured with Jeffrey Epstein too. There were victims who confirmed that they saw Donald Trump with Epstein in the presence of underage girls who were part of the pedophile network that Jeffrey Epstein operated. But now, what did Donald Trump approve? Did he approve the release of everything? Are all of the documents going to be released? No, of course not. Not all of the files are going to be released. The Department of Justice in the United States, although they said that they ordered to release extensive documentation, they still allow certain information to be withheld or redacted. Although they said that they can't prohibit withholding information, or they do prohibit withholding information solely due to embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, that doesn't mean they're going to release everything in relation to certain top figures, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. So they still have the right to keep some of the information hidden, which means, again, that we're not talking about the Epstein files altogether. We're talking about extensive documentation that could perhaps include certain emails, certain communication, similar to the communication that was released previously, that would mention certain names, perhaps, and whatever is sensitive and should not be published according to, well, the people who have the power. It's not just the Department of Justice, and it isn't just Donald Trump. They will not be releasing them. So, and no one should be expecting all of the Epstein files to be released, even with this order and even with Trump. And one thing everyone should be very careful of is the fact that Donald Trump is trying to take credit for it. Trump, he had people in his administration, like Patel, like Kash Patel, who said that they're going to release the Epstein files, only for us to see dribs and drabs of some emails here and there. Yeah, they included some information, but not the Epstein files. And then they started to backtrack on everything, and Donald Trump started to be all sensitive. He wouldn't have published anything, and he wouldn't have ordered the release of the files had it not been for the public pressure to release the files. So if there was a hashtag release the Epstein files, now should be a hashtag release all of the Epstein files, including the videos, including the recordings, including the names of anyone serving and not serving. And please tell us what Ghislaine Maxwell is saying. She's in prison. She's the witness. She's the main witness. She's his right hand. She's Jeffrey Epstein's right hand. She's sitting there. Why doesn't she come and we hear some of her statements and she doesn't share the information that she knows to the public? Or is she not really imprisoned, as in, is she half imprisoned, or what is it exactly? Is she in a villa or something? We know that Jeffrey Epstein had a nice location in prison, you know, a 5-star prison trip. And of course, all of that shady death of his, all of a sudden he hung himself and cameras don't work and the guards weren't looking and they show his body that didn't really match his face and features, but to kind of cover up the fact that, well, nothing happened to him. He's probably in Israel or somewhere else. Israel is the pedophile hub of, pedophiles. It's the state of pedophiles at the end of the day. If you commit crimes, well, like Netanyahu's official who was in the United States and he had charges pressed against him of having pedophile actions on US soil. And then what does the United States do? They send him to Israel. So it's a pedophile hub, criminal pedophile. You could go to Israel, no problem, so long as, you know, the connections are there. So no one should buy the fact that Donald Trump made this order and give Donald Trump any credit. Donald Trump did not want to release the Epstein files, and Donald Trump will not approve the release of all of the Epstein files because he's in the Epstein files.